I stood in front of the mirror in the powder room at the Plaza Hotel in Manhattan, adjusting my grandmother's diamond necklace that she'd worn to her own wedding in 1952. It was December 8th, the annual Christmas gala for Henderson and Associates, one of Wall Street's most prestigious investment firms. My midnight blue Oscar de la Renta gown hugged my curves perfectly, a deliberate choice for the night that would change everything. My name is Rachel Morgan. I'm 38 years old, and I've been married to Daniel for 12 years. We met at Harvard Business School, both ambitious students gunning for the top. Daniel is now managing director at the firm, while I serve as chief strategy officer at the same company. What most people don't know is that I come from old Boston money. My grandfather founded one of the first venture capital firms in Massachusetts, and my trust fund is what enabled Daniel to buy his partnership stake. The grand ballroom was breathtaking, with its gilded ceiling and crystal chandeliers that cost more than most people's homes. I grabbed a glass of Dom Perignon from a passing waiter, savoring the delicate bubbles. That's when I saw them. Daniel stood near the terrace overlooking Fifth Avenue, and he wasn't alone. Ashley Bennett, 26 years old, our new analyst, fresh out of Wharton, wore a red Versace dress I'd seen on his Amex Black Card statement. $8,000 from Bergdorf Goodman. Conversations around me gradually died down. Eyes darted between me and them like they were watching a tennis match at the U.S. Open. Mrs. Henderson, the founder's widow, approached with a look of sympathy. "Rachel, darling, perhaps you should—" I smiled serenely. "Thank you, Margaret, but I'm exactly where I need to be." I glided across the ballroom with the poise my mother had drilled into me at Miss Porter's school. Every step calculated, my posture perfect. Years of cotillion finally serving their purpose. "Good evening, Daniel." "Good evening, Ashley. Stunning dress. From Bergdorf's, isn't it? The 5th floor?" Daniel went pale. "Rachel, I didn't expect you. You said you were flying to San Francisco for the tech conference. The conference ended early. You know how efficient Silicon Valley folks are." Ashley flushed and instinctively grabbed Daniel's arm. The gesture wasn't lost on anyone. Mr. Henderson himself observed from his table, his brows furrowed behind his wire-rimmed glasses. I made my way to the bar where Tony, who'd been serving at the Plaza for 30 years, made me a Manhattan without my asking. "Need some liquid courage tonight, Mrs. Morgan?" "No, Tony. Celebration." The next hour passed like a chess match at the Harvard Club. I circulated among the guests, laughing at the appropriate moments, discussing the Fed's latest rate decision with senior partners. But I felt the tension mounting. iPhones emerged discreetly, texts flying, the scandal of the century unfolding before their eyes. Brad Thompson, Daniel's chief rival for the CEO position, approached. "Rachel, I'm so sorry about this awkward situation. If there's anything I can do." I touched his arm lightly. "Thank you, Brad. But I assure you, I have everything under control." At 9:30, Mr. Henderson took the microphone for his traditional address. He spoke of American excellence, our expansion to Tokyo and London, the Fortune 500 clients we'd acquired. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. He announced that Daniel was being considered for CEO of the entire firm. The applause was lukewarm, punctuated by awkward glances in my direction. Daniel walked toward the stage, Ashley still clinging to his arm like a barnacle to a ship's hull. He began his speech, talking about vision, innovation, the American dream. That's when I stood. The sound of my chair against the marble floor echoed through the ballroom. All eyes turned to me. I approached the stage, my Louboutins clicking against the floor. "Excuse me, Daniel, but I'd like to say a few words." Daniel looked at me with pleading eyes. "Rachel, this really isn't the time." Mr. Henderson gestured for me to continue. "Please, Mrs. Morgan, after all, you've been part of the Henderson family for so long." I took the microphone. My voice was crystal clear, every word perfectly enunciated. "Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I'd like to take this opportunity to share something rather important with you all. As you may be aware, Daniel and I are going through a somewhat challenging period." The silence was absolute. Even the waiters had frozen in place. "What you don't know is that before our marriage, we signed a prenuptial agreement with Cravath, Swaine & Moore, the most prestigious law firm in New York. An agreement I had drafted by Jessica Rothschild, the attorney who handled the Bloomberg divorce." Daniel turned white as fresh snow. "Rachel, please. This agreement stipulates that in the event of proven adultery, the guilty party forfeits all rights to marital assets. The penthouse on the Upper East Side, the house in the Hamptons, the Aspen Ski Lodge, the investment portfolio worth $22 million, and most importantly, the shares in Henderson and Associates. I pulled an envelope from my Hermes clutch. I have here photographs, credit card statements, hotel bookings at the St. Regis. 37 overnight stays in 5 months, always the same suite, always the same pattern. I also have sworn affidavits from 3 hotel employees, properly witnessed by a licensed private investigator. Ashley had distanced herself from Daniel and was trying to blend into the crowd. But I wasn't finished. There's something else you should know, Mr. Henderson. Miss Bennett isn't just an analyst. She's the daughter of Richard Bennett, founding partner of Bennett Capital, your primary competitor. Rather interesting that a young woman with access to all our confidential files should be so close to our biggest rival, wouldn't you say? The explosion of murmurs in the ballroom was deafening. Mr. Henderson stood abruptly. "Is this true, Miss Bennett?" Ashley stammered. It's not what it looks like. I never disclosed." I continued, relentless. "I've also discovered that 8 of our most valuable clients mysteriously moved to Bennett Capital last month. The very clients Ashley was managing. What an extraordinary coincidence." The ballroom doors opened. Jessica Rothschild entered, flanked by 2 associates and a process server. She walked directly to Daniel and handed him an envelope. "Mr. Morgan, you are hereby served with divorce proceedings on grounds of adultery. Given the overwhelming evidence, I suggest you retain excellent counsel, though frankly, your prospects are rather grim." She then turned to Mr. Henderson. "Sir, Mrs. Morgan has also instructed me to inform you that she's tendering her resignation, effective immediately. She'll be joining Goldman Sachs as global head of strategy. They're thrilled to welcome someone of her caliber and integrity." That's when Daniel collapsed. He slumped into a chair, head in his hands. "Rachel, how could you? It was a mistake. I can explain everything." "A mistake?" I laughed, and the sound echoed through the ballroom. "A mistake lasting 6 months? A mistake costing $800,000 in gifts and trips? No, Daniel. The mistake was thinking I'd stay silent." I set down the microphone and walked toward the exit. Outside on 5th Avenue, someone was waiting. Christopher Vanderbilt, heir to one of New York's oldest banking families. We'd been seeing each other discreetly for 10 months since I'd discovered Daniel's affair. "How did it go?" he asked, wrapping me in his cashmere coat. Dramatic. Very American, actually. Everyone was polite until they weren't. The following weeks were a media frenzy. The story circulated through every country club from Greenwich to Southampton. Daniel not only lost his position at Henderson and Associates, but was barred from the New York Stock Exchange for gross professional misconduct. Ashley faced charges of corporate espionage and breach of fiduciary duty. The divorce was swift. With the prenup and evidence of adultery, the judge didn't hesitate. I got the penthouse, the Hamptons house, the Aspen Lodge, and most importantly, Daniel's shares in the firm, which I promptly sold to Brad Thompson for a considerable sum. But the real surprise came 6 months later. I was in my new office at Goldman Sachs on the 47th floor when my assistant announced a visitor. It was Ashley. She'd changed. The youthful arrogance had vanished, replaced by genuine humility. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, her suit modest but well-tailored. "Mrs. Morgan, Rachel, may I have a word?" I invited her to sit. "What can I do for you, Ashley?" I wanted to apologize. Sincerely. And to thank you. "Thank me?" I raised an eyebrow. "You opened my eyes. I was foolish, manipulated. Daniel promised me the world, but he only wanted the information I could provide. My father, he disowned me when everything came out. Says I've disgraced the family name. I observed this broken young woman. She reminded me of myself 12 years earlier, when I'd believed marrying Daniel was the pinnacle of achievement. What will you do now?" "I don't know. My career on Wall Street is finished. I'm thinking of moving to Seattle, starting fresh." I thought for a moment, then picked up the phone. "Jennifer, could you connect me to Michael Chen at our Seattle office? Tell him I have a candidate for the compliance training program." "Yes, I know it's unusual. Tell him it's a personal favor." Ashley stared at me, incredulous. "Why are you doing this?" "Because we were both victims of the same man. And because everyone deserves a second chance. But Ashley, this is your only opportunity. Don't waste it. She had tears in her eyes. I won't let you down. I promise. A year later, I received a letter from Seattle. Ashley was excelling in her new role and had just been promoted. She was engaged to a Microsoft engineer and seemed to have found peace. Daniel, meanwhile, vanished from Manhattan society. Last I heard, he was working as a financial consultant for a small firm in Buffalo. His reputation destroyed, his career in tatters. And me? I flourished like never before. At Goldman Sachs, I tripled my salary and found my true calling. Christopher and I married at our estate in the Hamptons, surrounded by roses and those we held dear. This time, no complicated contracts. We didn't need them. Sometimes, when I pass the plaza, I think back to that December evening, the moment I took that microphone and reclaimed my life. It wasn't revenge, it was justice. It was the moment I stopped being a victim and became the author of my own story. 2 years later, I received a letter that moved me deeply. It came from Elizabeth, Daniel's mother. This elegant woman from Charleston had always treated me with kindness and respect. "My dear Rachel," she wrote in her perfect Palmer script, "I know I have no right to contact you after what my son put you through, but I wanted you to know that I always recognized what a remarkable woman you are. Daniel was a fool to lose you. I told him so, but he was too proud to listen. I have something for you, something that rightfully belongs to you." In the envelope was a key and the address of a safe deposit box at J.P. Morgan. Inside, I found the Morgan family jewelry, magnificent pieces dating back to the Gilded Age, and a letter from Daniel's father, written shortly before his death. To my son's wife, the letter read, "If you're reading this, it means Daniel has made the mistake I warned him against. He's let his pride destroy what was most precious. These jewels belonged to my great-grandmother, a formidable woman who survived the Great Depression. They deserve to be worn by someone who honors her courage. Take care, Rachel, and don't let my son's betrayal dim your light." I wept reading those words. Tears of gratitude and closure. Even in his own family, there had been people who saw my worth. Today, 5 years after that memorable gala, I sit in my corner office overlooking Central Park. My daughter Emma, 4 years old, plays in the nursery we've created especially for her. Christopher joins me for lunch at the Four Seasons every Tuesday, a tradition we've established. I've founded a nonprofit, the Phoenix Foundation, offering legal and psychological support to women trapped in manipulative relationships. We've already helped over 1,000 women reclaim their lives. Last week, I was invited to deliver a lecture at Harvard Business School, my alma mater. The topic? Female leadership and the importance of integrity in business. The auditorium was packed to capacity. When I stepped up to the podium, I saw dozens of young women with eyes bright with ambition and hope. But I also saw older women, some with that look I knew too well. The look of those who'd been betrayed, humiliated, yet still searching for the strength to rise. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began 5 years ago, "I experienced the worst and best night of my life. Worst, because I had to publicly confront my husband's betrayal. Best, because it was the night I decided never again to let anyone else define my worth." I spoke for an hour about courage, resilience, but also forgiveness. Not the forgiveness that excuses everything, but the kind that liberates. I told Ashley's story, how she'd rebuilt herself. I even mentioned Daniel, without bitterness, as an example of what happens when one confuses power with manipulation. The standing ovation was overwhelming, but what touched me most were the women who approached me afterwards. One, a professor at MIT, confided she'd just left her abusive husband inspired by my story. Another, a law student, said she'd decided to specialize in family law to help other women. That evening, driving home through Manhattan's illuminated streets, I reflected on the journey, this city that had witnessed my rebirth. I thought about all the obstacles overcome, the victories won. Christopher was waiting with Emma asleep in his arms. "How was it?" he whispered. "Inspiring," I replied. "I feel like I've come full circle. You changed lives tonight," he said, kissing me, "as you changed mine." Tucking Emma into bed, I whispered, "You'll be strong, sweetheart. You'll be independent, and you'll never let anyone tell you you're worth less than you truly are." The story of my confrontation at the plaza has become legend in New York's business circles. It's told at Columbia Business School, cited in leadership seminars. But for me, it's not a story of revenge. It's a story of rebirth. Recently, I gave an interview to the Wall Street Journal. The journalist asked if I had any regrets. I thought carefully before answering. I regret nothing, I said, not even the years lost with Daniel, because those years taught me who I truly am. They prepared me to become the woman I am today, a woman who knows her worth and is no longer afraid to show it to the world. The journalist then asked what advice I'd give to women in similar situations. My answer was simple. Don't wait for someone to give you justice. Take it, with elegance, with intelligence, but take it. Your life belongs to you. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. A few months ago, I ran into a former colleague from Henderson and Associates. She told me they now use my story as a case study in their ethics training. The irony made me smile. But the biggest surprise came 3 weeks ago. I received a message on LinkedIn. It was Daniel, after 5 years of silence. "Rachel," he wrote, "I know I have no right to contact you. I just wanted to say that I finally understand. I understand what I lost, what I destroyed through my stupidity and arrogance. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I just wanted to say you were right. About everything. I hope you're happy. You deserve to be." I read the message 3 times. Then I deleted it. Not from anger, but because it belonged to a closed chapter of my life. Daniel was part of my past. My present and future lay elsewhere. Tonight, as I write these words in my journal, Emma sleeps peacefully in the next room. Christopher works in his study on plans for our new house in Martha's Vineyard. Life is sweet, full, rich with meaning. If someone had told me 5 years ago that the worst humiliation of my life would lead to my greatest happiness, I wouldn't have believed them. But that's exactly what happened. That night in December, when I took that microphone and revealed the truth, I did more than destroy a toxic marriage. I built the foundation of my new life. A life where I'm no longer defined by my husband, but by my own achievements. A life where love is based on mutual respect rather than manipulation. A life where I can look my daughter in the eye and tell her with certainty that she must never accept less than she deserves. That's the real victory. Not the spectacular revenge, not Daniel's public humiliation, not even the millions recovered. The real victory is transforming pain into strength, betrayal into liberation, an ending into a new beginning. And when women ask me how I found the courage to do what I did, I always give the same answer. The courage was already there, in me, in you. It was simply waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. And sometimes that moment comes when you hit rock bottom. Because when you're at the bottom, the only way is up. My story isn't unique. Thousands of women experience similar situations every day. The difference is that I had the means, the education, the support necessary to defend myself. That's why I created the Phoenix Foundation, so that every woman, regardless of her situation, can access the tools she needs to reclaim her life. Next week, we're opening our 7th center, this time in Chicago. We already have plans for Dallas and San Francisco. My dream is that one day, no woman will feel trapped in a toxic relationship for lack of means or support. Christopher sometimes teases me, saying I've turned my anger into an empire. He's not wrong, but it's an empire built on mutual aid, respect, and dignity. An empire where every woman is the CEO of her own life. That evening at the plaza, 5 years ago, I learned a fundamental lesson. We cannot control others' actions, but we can always control our reaction. And sometimes, the best reaction isn't to leave quietly, but to leave with fireworks, ensuring justice is served. I'm no saint. I don't pretend my revenge was pure or altruistic. It was personal, visceral, necessary. But what began as revenge transformed into something greater. A mission, a purpose, a reason for being. Today, when I look in the mirror, I see an accomplished, fulfilled woman, loved and respected. I see a mother who can serve as an example to her daughter. I see a wife who is her husband's equal. I see a business leader who uses her power to help others. And all thanks to a man who thought he could trample me without consequences. The irony is delicious. Daniel wanted everything. His career, his mistress, his submissive wife. He lost it all. I simply wanted respect. I gained so much more. If I had to summarize these 5 years in one sentence, it would be this. The best revenge is a life well lived. And my life today is extraordinary. Last week, Emma found an old photo from my wedding to Daniel while playing in my study. "Mommy, who's this man?" she asked in her sweet little voice. I looked her in the eye and replied, "Someone who taught me an important lesson, sweetheart. He taught me that our worth doesn't depend on anyone else. We decide how much we're worth." She nodded with that wisdom only children possess and said, "Should we say thank you to him then?" I smiled. "In a way, yes, we should say thank you, because it's true. Without Daniel's betrayal, I would never have discovered my true strength. I would never have met Christopher, never had Emma, never built the empire I have today. Sometimes the most painful moments in our lives are the ones that lead us to our true selves. This is my story, the story of a woman who transformed humiliation into triumph, pain into power, an ending into a magnificent new beginning. And if there's one thing I want every woman reading this to know, it's this. Within you lies a strength you cannot even imagine. It's simply waiting for the right moment to emerge. And when that moment arrives, be ready to take everything that's rightfully yours, with style, with class, but above all, with the absolute knowledge of your worth. Life is too short to accept less than we deserve, and we women, my dears, deserve the entire world.